Maybe when you hear the name of Venerable TenzinPalmo, you immediately think of the book Cave in the Snow, a work that inspires, motivates, and touches. You may wonder, who is TenzinPalmo? Where is she now?
Kính bạch chư tôn đức, kính thưa chư liệt vị, ni sư TenzinPalmo là người phương Tây. Người được sinh ra tại Anh Quốc năm 1943, ngay từ nhỏ đã thích sống lặng lẽ một mình, thích tìm hiểu tôn giáo phương Đông, đặc biệt là Phật giáo, và luôn khát khao giác ngộ chân lý.
Most venerable distinguished participants, Venerable TenzinPalmo is a Western nun. She was born in 1943 in England. As a child, she was very quiet and didn't want to mingle with others. She was interested in Eastern religions, especially in Buddhism, and was always thirsty for truths.
Năm 20 tuổi, ni sư từ bỏ việc làm ở thư viện, theo tiếng gọi tâm linh sang Ấn Độ tầm sư học đạo. Năm 21 tuổi, được Ngài Khamchun Rinpoche, đời thứ 8 nhận làm đệ tử cho xuất gia, thọ giới sa di, trở thành sư cô đầu tiên người phương Tây được xuất gia tại Ấn Độ. Năm 30 tuổi, ni sư bắt đầu cuộc sống ẩn cư thiền định trên núi tuyết ròng rã suốt 12 năm. Khi 43 tuổi, ni sư rời núi tuyết để thực hiện tâm nguyện thành lập một tu viện ở miền Bắc Ấn Độ để giúp cho nữ giới có điều kiện tu tập. Hiện nay, ni sư TenzinPalmo của chúng ta đang điều hành tu viện Đông Du Getsoling với gần 80 vị ni đang tu tập tại đây.
At the age of 20, she left her work in the library to pursue the call of spirituality and went to India to look for a teacher. When she was 21 years old, she got seminary ordination under the 8th Khamchun Rinpoche. She was the first Western woman to receive ordination in India. At the age of 30, Venerable TenzinPalmo began her 12-year meditation retreat in a small cave in the Himalayas. When she was 43 years old, she left the mountains with the aspiration to establish a nunnery for the Himalayan nuns in northern India. At present, she is conducting the Dongju Gasaling nunnery, where about 80 nuns are residing.
Năm 2007, ni sư được Đức Pháp Vương Gengun Rupa làm lễ tấn phong và trao danh hiệu Jessemer, có nghĩa là một nữ hành giả tu tập giác ngộ thành tựu pháp.
In 2007, she was given the title Jesuma, which means an enlightened female practitioner by His Holiness Wanwan Krupa.
Như vậy, nhờ đâu mà ni sư có thể thiền định suốt 12 năm trời trong một hang động trên dãy Hy Mã Lạp Sơn, quanh năm tuyết phủ với cái lạnh của âm 40 đến 50 độ C. Trong khoảng thời gian 12 năm đó, nhờ đâu mà ni sư có thể thiền định được trong một cái hộp gỗ với khuôn viên chỉ vừa đủ chỗ ngồi, và người cũng chỉ ngủ trong tư thế an tọa. Và nhờ đâu ni sư được trao danh hiệu Jessemer, thành tựu pháp từ một đức Pháp Vương tôn kính đó.
What is the main cause behind her power that enables her to survive in the temperature of minus 40 to 50 Celsius degrees in a wooden box just wide enough for her to sit in? What is the hidden force behind all her achievements? Is it the unshaken faith and the firm resolution?
Phải chăng mọi sự thành tựu đó đều được phát xuất từ niềm tin kiên cố và ý chí sắt đá? Giờ đây, ni sư đang hiện hữu với chúng ta bằng một con người thật, cũng bằng xương bằng thịt, nhưng cuộc đời tu tập của người chẳng khác nào một huyền thoại. Để hiểu về quá trình cuộc đời tu tập của ni sư như thế nào, chúng ta hãy lắng nghe bài pháp thoại ni sư sẽ chia sẻ với chúng ta qua đề tài nuôi dưỡng niềm tin. Xin trân trọng giới thiệu đến chư tôn thiền đức và toàn thể chúng hội ni sư TenzinPalmo.
Now Venerable TenzinPalmo is in front of us in flesh and bones, not like a character of a legend. Please listen to her DharmaTalk this evening entitled Cultivating Faith.
Trước khi cung thỉnh ni sư bắt đầu cho thời pháp, chúng con cung thỉnh quý ni trưởng, quý ni sư và toàn thể đại biểu đồng khởi thân niệm Phật.
Before starting the Dharma talk, we would like to request all the venerable and participants to stand up to recite the name of the Buddha.
Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca mâu ni Phật. Nam mô Bổn Sư Thích Ca Mâu Ni Phật. Cung thỉnh chư tôn đức và toàn thể đại chúng an tọa.
Please be seated.
Chúng con cung thỉnh ni sư bắt đầu cho buổi giảng.
We would like to invite Venerable TenzinPalmo to start your Dharma talk. Thank you.
So, good evening to you all. Can you all hear me? Okay. I apologize that the talk this evening is a pre-written speech, and so most of the time I will be looking at the page rather than at you, but for the sake of translations, this is easiest. Perhaps I should explain, when I was about to leave for this conference, I received an email saying, please could you send the contents of your speech. And usually I speak spontaneously. I don't usually speak from a written script here. So I had nothing. I didn't know what to do. I was on the point of leaving. So I just looked through a list of past transcripts of talks I had given in the past, and since I knew that this talk was supposed to be on devotion, I saw one entitled Cultivating Faith. And so I sent along that one without reading it, and that's the one you're getting this evening. So I apologize about what to do. Okay. So the subject of this evening's talk is on cultivating faith and devotion. Do I have to stop speaking? No. I didn't choose this title, and I was actually rather stunned when I saw it. Being by nature rather skeptical, I'm not sure if I'm the right person to start talking about faith and devotion and how to cultivate them. However, we'll do our best. The Lord Buddha himself actually put faith at the forefront of the 5 powers needed in order to attain Buddhahood. He described faith as leaping forward. He talked about a river without a bridge over it. People who were on one side of this river wanted to proceed to the other side, but they held back, thinking, no, the river is too wide, it's too deep, it's flowing too fast, we can't make it. So they hesitated. And then one man who had more courage said, we can do it. I believe that it's possible to cross. And then he crossed the river with that sense of determination and faith. And because he got across, others were encouraged to cross too. So in other words, faith is a kind of confidence. It's not blind faith or a belief in something just because one is credulous. In Buddhism, faith means a kind of inner confidence in something that is worthy of our trust. For example, we have faith in the Dharma, but that doesn't mean we have to blindly swallow everything we read. Just because it's written in the holy books, or if a lama says it, if a teacher says it, doesn't mean we necessarily have to believe it. In the Buddha Dharma, that kind of credulous, unquestioning, naive belief is not necessarily considered to be a virtue at all. The quality of questioning in an intelligent manner and really investigating and seeing for ourselves whether something is worthy of our belief or not is very much encouraged. It's not only in the Dharma where we are encouraged to question, but also the whole attitude about our teachers. Sometimes I would go to my Lama, Kamtul Rinpoche, and show him a passage I just could not swallow. And he would laugh and say, oh, come on, you don't have to believe everything just because it's written in the books or said in the sutras. It may not be true. At one time, he said that a lot of what was written in the books and in the sutras was a result of the particular cultural accretions and superstitions of that time. It's not an eternal truth. It's just what they happened to believe at that time, and the Buddha couldn't be bothered to negate it because it wasn't very important. For example, some Westerners grappled desperately with the whole question of Mount Sumeru and the 4 continents in order to keep complete and unquestioning faith in their Lama's teachings. I once gave a talk to our little monks about the sun and the moon. I had an apple and an orange, and I was explaining the sun is here, the moon is there, and there's the earth, and the moon goes around the earth, and they both go around the sun, and so forth. There was an old monk at the back of the room who said, where is Mount Sumeru and the 4 continents? Because the earth is flat on the back of a turtle. I said, well, as far as we can tell, there is no Mount Sumeru and the 4 continents. The earth is not flat, it's round. And the old monk just nodded and said something like, oh well, maybe in medieval Europe I would have been burned at the stake for less. But in the world of delusory appearances, flat or round, who cares? We're talking about not swallowing everything we're told. Being incredulous is actually not a virtue. We have to bring our intelligence to everything. In the Buddha Dharma, there are 3 aspects. First, we hear or study the Dharma. We read about it, we hear about it, and then we think about it. We really think about what we've read or heard. We turn it over in our mind. And if there are any doubts, we go and ask about them. When our doubts are settled, then we go away to contemplate it until we become that teaching. But we don't just bite off the Dharma and swallow it as an undigested lump. We really have to chew it well before we can swallow it and become nourished. Because otherwise it will sit like a heavy ball inside our stomach. One of the beautiful things about the Buddha Dharma is its essential truth. As soon as we hear it, we think, oh yes, right. We recognize the truth of issues like impermanence, the unsatisfactory nature of general existence, the fact of our clinging to an ego is what is causing our problems in the first place. The fact that these negative qualities of mind, like our delusion, our greed and clinging, our aggression and anger, our pride and our jealousy and envy afflict the mind and create great pain in the mind. That isn't a belief. That isn't just a matter of faith. That's a matter of just looking at the situation and thinking, yes, that's right. Whenever our mind is unhappy, if we really look into it, the problem is always these very poisonous emotions in our mind. Our depression is mostly caused by aggression in the mind, even if that aggression is turned inwards towards ourselves, as it very often is. It's usually based on the root of hatred. So I'm not going to talk about the fundamentals of the Buddha Dharma, but when one looks into them, there's something inside us which quickly realizes, yes, that's how it is. And so we have a sense of confidence. We think, if these very basic teachings are so clear and so true, then maybe there are more advanced teachings which my deluded mind cannot yet completely comprehend at the moment. Then, if we don't understand them, instead of saying, no, this is all wrong because I don't understand it and it doesn't agree with my own preconceptions, we can say, well, right now I don't understand this. This doesn't accord with how I see things. For now, I'll put it to one side, and later, when I have studied and practiced and experienced more, I'll go back and look at it again. Do you understand? So we're not heretics if we don't have but blind faith and a belief in dogmas. It's not like that. Every step of the way, we have to know where we are putting our foot down. We have to understand what it means. We have to question, and we have to really investigate and use our intelligence. In the traditional form of studying philosophy in Tibet, every part of the text is debated. You must have seen those pictures of people standing up and doing very ritualistic debates, slapping their hands. But what they are doing is taking each section and dissecting it while questioning the opponent, trying to trip them up. They have to defend their position with quotation from sutras and the masters, and also through logic and clear exposition of their position. In other words, we really have to understand what we believe and what we don't believe, and why we believe it or not. This is very important. We should really think about that with everything we read and apply it to our lives and see if it's true or not. During our day, we can look for and see examples of this. If we don't believe it, then why don't we believe it? We can go and discuss it with someone who is more learned and more realized than ourselves and see if they can explain it to us clearly. If they can't, then we will put it aside for now. And from time to time, we can bring it back and maybe say, well, that makes more sense now. Why wasn't it clear before? In that sense, in Buddhism, faith is not blind faith. That's not encouraged. What is encouraged is the kind of confidence that enlightened masters really are enlightened, that they really understand and can make the whole thing very clear for us. And what we have to do is to trust that when we study, analyze, and look, it will all become very clear. As we practice and integrate the Dharma into our everyday life again and again, we suddenly say, yes, that's right. That's what he meant when he said that. The whole thing suddenly becomes alive and really real. It comes down from the head into the heart and is confirmed, thinking, right, that's what they meant. Yes, yes. Now, on the other part, which is much more tricky, as I go around the world, both in the West and in the East, one of the main questions asked is, how do I find the perfect master? I have a friend in Italy who's convinced that somewhere there is the perfect master waiting for him. And at a certain point, he's somehow going to meet him. It's a him. And this master is going to say the word, or just gaze at him in the eyes and say, you are the one, or something like that. And then this man is going to be enlightened. Because if the master can't immediately give him enlightenment, obviously he's not a perfect master. Therefore, this man does nothing. He doesn't practice. Why bother? The master will do it. And therefore, to practice and try to make any effort on our side is counterproductive. We just wait until the karma is right and the master appears, and that's it. Now, you'd be surprised that even though that's an extreme case, but it's true, how many people secretly believe this? How many people have this fantasy of somehow coming across some yogi or lama sitting on a mountaintop who looks up and says, "Ah, I have been waiting for you. What took you so long?" People think that if they could only find the perfect master who's just right for them, all their problems would be solved. Sometimes I say to people, look, even if you meet your master, that's when your problems begin. In fact, even if the Buddha himself was sitting here in front of us, what could he do with our untamed and uncontrolled minds except say practice? Now, Tibetan Buddhism emphasizes the Lama a lot. Lama, 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 Lama. And there is a particular emphasis on what is called the Tsawi Lama, or the root guru. It should be understood, first of all, that teachers or lamas from whom we receive ordinations, initiations, teachings, or have any contact with are not by any means necessarily our root guru. Sometimes people take refuge with the Lama and assume that this must be now their heart guru. But that's not true. That's your refuge guru. There are many levels of teachers. There are teachers who bestow the precepts on us. These are our preceptors. There are lamas who grant us initiations, and these are our initiatory masters. There are lamas who teach us philosophy and the intellectual side of the Dharma, and those are our professors. There are many kinds of lamas. There are lamas we go to for advice and help. These are our spiritual friends, our Kalyana Mitra. It's actually quite rare to meet with the Lama who is our root or heart guru. Traditionally, at least in the Kagyu or Nyingma schools, the root guru is the Lama who points out to us the true nature of the mind. The one who points out to us the essential naked awareness behind the conceptual coming and going of the thoughts, and who reveals to us our innate Buddha nature, that is the root guru. I was personally very fortunate in meeting my own Lama, Kamta Rinpoche, on my 21st birthday. And although he passed away in 1980 at the age of 48, he was very quickly reborn and is now in his 20s. He's the spiritual head of our nunnery, which we have founded, and in all these years, he has always been my Lama, so he's always sitting in my heart. So, in that way, it could be said I have devotion. In this, I'm constant. But that was because Rinpoche was for me what is called a Serabji Lama. This means a Lama through all our lifetimes. In each lifetime, when we meet with our teacher again, there is an instant recognition from both sides. That is very fortunate, because then there's no need to doubt. There's an immediate acceptance. The important thing is that we have to really trust the Lama. We have to trust that he understands us better than we understand ourselves. Because otherwise, how can he guide us if he doesn't know and see us more clearly than we can see ourselves? Do you understand? But in the general logistics of things, now that we are reborn all over the world, the likelihood of actually having the good fortune to meet someone with whom we have a very strong spiritual connection from the past is maybe 50-50. For one thing, maybe the Lama or the teacher has not been reborn, or he was reborn far away. Maybe in Tibetan system, he's born in Tibet and then you can't meet him, or somewhere else. So we don't meet him, or he's been reborn, but maybe he's only 2 years old. Therefore, it can be that we'll meet with teachers with whom we may not have that instant sense of acceptance and recognition, but we like them. We feel a sense of, this is a good person. Sometimes people meet lamas and think, well, I don't know what he believes, but whatever it is, I'll go for it. Because there's a sense of instant trust. But we don't know. And this is where it gets tricky. In our culture, we are very much drawn by charisma. It's a culture of worshipping film stars and rock stars and sports people. Even our presidents sometimes end up being the ones who have the most glamour. And we can get very caught up in taking this charisma for genuine inner qualities. Do you understand? Sometimes the most charismatic teachers are not the ones who have the most genuine inner realizations. Some of the most genuinely inwardly realized beings are outwardly uncharismatic, totally unassuming, and seemingly ordinary. His Holiness the Dalai Lama says that according to the tantric texts, we should examine the Lama for at least 3 years and at most 12 years. We should examine him or her, and as His Holiness puts it, we should spy on the Lama. Because it's not just how they appear when they're on their throne giving teachings and empowerments, but also what they're like behind the scenes. How do they treat their attendants? How do they treat people who have no particular importance to them? Not how do they treat their big sponsors. How do they treat ordinary people? Look, watch. Don't be beguiled by glamour. Don't be over-impressed by their reputation. Don't be seduced by the fact that they have thousands of students and big organizations. Look, ask around. Not just their disciples, but also other people. Investigate. Because after taking a Lama as our heart Lama, we are putting our life on the line to that person. Not just this lifetime, but future lifetimes. As I say, if it's not a true guru, then hand in hand, teacher and disciple will jump over the abyss. At a teachers' conference, one very famous Western teacher asked His Holiness the Dalai Lama, how do we deal with the issue of sitting on a high seat and giving teachings, and then how we are and how we act in our everyday life as an ordinary person? How do we bridge the gap between the spiritual persona we are giving out to people and who we are behind the scenes? And His Holiness looked blank and said, what? So the teacher asked the question again a different way, and then His Holiness glances his translator again in puzzlement, and he tried to get him to explain things. Then His Holiness said, if there is any difference between who you are sitting on your throne and who you are behind the scenes, then you should not be sitting on that throne. He explained that that doesn't mean we can't relax. But essentially, there has to be continuity. If we change and become a different person behind the scenes from what we are presenting as a teacher, then we should not be a teacher. So we have to look at our teachers carefully. Are they the same? Are they compassionate under all circumstances? That's an important one. Are they always kind, even to people who are of no importance? Do they get angry? What is their reputation? Are they ethical? If the teacher is a male, what is his relationship with his female disciples? Are there male disciples? Are people who have studied with these teachers after many years better people? What are the people around the teacher like? There was a controversial Lama who lived in America whom I knew and who was a good friend of my Lama, Kamta Rinpoche. I asked Kamta Rinpoche about him because he was so very notorious. Rinpoche said, well, at that level, it's very difficult to know. We have to wait for 20 years and then look at his students. Not 2 years, but 20 years. Give them time to mature and then look. So this is a very good indication, you know, actually what happens to the students after being with their teacher for many, many years. In the meantime, there are, as I said, many levels of teachers. We have gratitude to every teacher, not just lamas, but anyone who teaches us anything. Even if they are a little lacking in some aspects, still we remember and we feel gratitude from what we have learned from them. Every teacher we receive any teachings from, every teacher who gives us empowerment, one is very grateful to them and has them on one's refuge tree. But still, they don't have to be one's heart guru. His Holiness the Dalai Lama said that if there are any problems concerning the teacher, if the students have doubts, then they should voice those doubts to the teacher. There might, for example, be sexual misconduct or some kind of manipulation, some doubts about the financial situation. Maybe the teacher is misusing the offerings to support his family or to support himself. The student should confront the teacher politely but firmly. Say, look, why is this happening? I don't understand why you are doing this. Maybe this is not how things should be done. Then it's up to the teacher. Either the teacher says, yes, I'm sorry, this is a weakness of mine, I apologize, I'll try to get things better from now on. Or they say, oh no, this is a high tantric practice you don't understand. This is beyond your level of realization. In which case, His Holiness says, you get out. His Holiness also says, although I'm not sure if I agree with this, you let everybody know and you don't keep it secret. The Tibetans, like most Asians, tend to sweep things under the carpet, then replace the carpet as if the dirt is no longer there. As if we could close our eyes, close our mouth, and the problem will go away. Perhaps this is the difficulty with religious organizations everywhere, not just Asia. His Holiness is very unusual in being so outspoken, but he's very concerned about the reputation of Tibetan Buddhism, which is in jeopardy because of the conduct of just a very few lamas, and because he himself often doesn't hear about it because people don't like to tell him. Sometimes when he goes to centers, he is shown smiling with these lamas because he doesn't know they're controversial. So he says, please let him know. I'm just telling you this so that I think we shouldn't be naive. Faith and devotion do not mean being credulous. We need a teacher whom we really connect with, whom we feel is the kind of being who is worthy to inspire us. This being, this teacher, embodies the Dharma in their every action, how they act, how they speak, how they think. We watch, we look, we see. And if there is perfect integrity, then we trust. We connect from the heart. And after that, whatever he does, we have to accept. So that's why we have to be very careful. So devotion to the Guru means that at a certain point, we become completely open. The role of the true Guru is to show us the nature of our mind. The nature of our mind is our innate Buddha nature, which is the same as the Guru's mind. You see, we don't go to the Guru for his body or for his personality or even for his learning. We go for refuge to his Dharmakaya mind and the fact that they embody the Karmakaya, that they themselves have realized this and therefore are capable of revealing this to us and guiding us after that. So the first thing the Guru reveals to us is our true nature and the naked awareness behind the coming going of our thoughts. In order to do that, the Guru themselves must have that realization and the ability to transmit it. The student from his or her side must have that openness. It has been described like a corridor with two doors. The Guru opens one door, but the student has to open the other door for there to be the space for the wind blowing through, the wind of blessings. So even though the Guru could be the greatest Guru in the world, if from our side we are closed, then nothing is transmitted. In order to be open, there has to be total trust and devotion, and that's why devotion is so stressed. Now, devotion can come from something very simple. I once knew an older English nun who came to my Lama's monastery in Tashijong at the time of the annual Lama dances, at the time of the Cham. This was during the time of the previous 8th Kampa Rinpoche. So she was just sitting there and watching him dance. And obviously her mind was very open. As he turned, he looked straight at her. And when he did this, it was as if her whole conceptual mind fell apart and she spontaneously realized the nature of the mind. And this even though he wasn't her Lama. And she'd just gone along to watch the dances. But because at that moment, her mind was open, and obviously she was feeling very relaxed, open spaciousness while she watched him, he was able to transmit something even while he was dancing. But that is just the beginning. Once we have seen, we've had a direct recognition of the nature of the mind, as my Lama said, then we can start to meditate. It's not the end, it's the beginning. We need the teacher, the Guru, to guide us, because each one of us is very unique, coming from a very different part of the circle of the mandala. And each one of us has very different needs. When I was younger, in my Lama's community at Tashijong, there were 3 Western nuns. One was from America, one was from Holland, and myself from England. So we would take empowerments and oral transmissions lung together. And we would decide on certain practices and ask for the empowerments and so forth. And the Lamas would wait, and they would always give it to the 3 of us at the same time. But then the actual teaching on the text, we each took separately, even from the same person. They would never teach us all together. They taught each one of us separately. Each one of us got a slightly different teaching. Just as an example, there was one teaching which we received, where you had to visualize a mandala of 120 different deities. One set outside yourself, one set inside the body, one set inside the heart of each set of 120 deities. It turned out there were about 600 different deities we were visualizing, and all of them had 3 heads and 6 arms plus a consort, and also the colors didn't coordinate. My other Dharma sisters were told just to visualize it sort of roughly and vaguely, just to get the feeling of it. So when I went to get the teaching, I asked Kamcha Rinpoche, so then just see it sort of rough and vaguely. And Rinpoche said, no, see it very precisely. Really visualize every deity very clearly. So he said, then if you see the whole thing very clearly in your mind will go up very quickly. So we were taught opposite things on the same practice by the same Lama. Each one of us was taught in a very different way with a different emphasis because we were very different and we had different needs. And so a true teacher understands that. At first we got the same kind of teaching on the same things. We all did the preliminary practices. We did certain other practices which everybody does. But after that, I was sent off in one direction to do one thing after another, and somebody else was sent off to do something completely different. I would ask Kamcha Rinpoche, what shall I do? And he'd say, well, how about such and such a practice? And I'd say, oh yes, right, fantastic, I'd love to do that. And then I'd go back to my Dharma sisters and they would say, oh, I hope he doesn't tell us to do that. And so I said, well, if that's your reaction, then he won't. And he didn't. Do you understand? We're all very different. What one person needs is not what another person needs. And the glory of the Tibetan path is that there is so much. It's like a Dharma supermarket. The true guru will guide you to the right product. He will find the products which you need to make your body and mind healthy. Because each of us is different. It's a very person-to-person relationship. In the meantime, we practice and we practice and we practice. And there are so many wonderful teachers, there are so many books, and we are very lucky because we are educated and we can read books. I mean, most Tibetans are not educated. The old-style Tibetans and ordinary people in Asia traditionally were not very educated, so they could not just sit down and read any book and understand it. They wait for someone to give them the teachings on the book. Then they can read it. Even today, sometimes if we give the average Tibetan, even an educated Tibetan, a book and ask, can you explain this? They will look at it and say, oh no, I'm sorry, I've never been given teachings on this. And so even if we insist, they say, no, I can't, I was never taught it. But we can pick up a book. Nowadays, most people can pick up books and read almost any book because we've been educated to do so. How lucky this is. We can go to many teachers, and many teachers come by and give teachings. How extraordinarily fortunate this is. And we can practice. There are practices which everyone can do. But first we have to clear our mind. It's like we are vessels which are filled to the brim with dirty water. Now, even if the most perfect Buddha came with nectar, how could he pour it into a glass which was already filled with dirty water? So first we have to empty something out the glass. We have to clean the glass to make it ready to receive the nectar. Otherwise, whatever is poured in will become contaminated. So as long as our minds are full of the poisons of the negative emotions, garbage, junk, and worn out opinions and memories and judgments, where is there any room? If any of you have been to Tibet, you know that it's very empty. Once we get outside of Lhasa, the town of Lhasa, the emptiness is very noticeable. We can go days and days and hardly see a tree or a building, and almost hardly people. It's very, very empty. And so when Tibetans come to do their decorations or when they make their scrolls, their tankas, look at them. There's no space. No space in their decorations, because outside there's so much space. Likewise, the Tibetan's mind traditionally was quite empty. There was no television, no magazines, no movies, no novels, no anything, no computers. Nothing, lots of internal empty space. And so with that empty inner space, they could fill up that vast emptiness with extremely complex visualizations and extremely complex philosophy, because there's lots of room. But mostly in the modern world, our minds are crammed full, mostly with garbage. So where can we put these precious seeds of the Dharma? Where can we plant them? In the garbage bin. We have to prepare the garden of our mind. Throw out some of the rubbish, dig in, pull out the weeds, toss out the stones, get the land ready so that when someone comes along with perfect Bodhi seeds and plants them, provided that we water them and fertilize them and give them the sunshine of the blessings in our practice, they will grow. First, we have to really work at preparing the soil so that when we meet with a master, when our masters are there and giving teachings, we can really absorb them and use them. Otherwise, even the greatest teachers, what can they do? It's just more junk in the mind. That's what happens. We absorb more and more of the Dharma and just turn it into junk. More ego enhancement. So each one of us has to look into our own mind and see clearly what is there and what needs to be done in order to prepare ourselves to accept and practice and become one with the perfect Dharma. It's a challenge. It's not easy. But the teachers are here. They are very compassionate. They come again and again to help us. They sow their Dharma seeds everywhere in the hope that some of them at least will flourish. But to make it worthwhile, we have to prepare the soil. We have to be worthy vessels. No one else can do this for us. Even the most perfect guru cannot tread the path for us. Each one of us has to tread it for ourselves. Thank you.
Liệu Pháp ơi.
So we have a little time if anyone has any questions.
Đại chúng có ai hỏi gì không ạ? Chắc có lẽ là Ni sư rất là nhiều kỷ niệm, cho nên phải chọn cái kỷ niệm nào mà thật là hay, mà thật là ngắn, chứ không thì hết giờ của đại chúng. Phải lục lại ký ức.
It's a little difficult question to say because there are certain experiences, very minor though they were, that one just doesn't discuss in public. Come down. She's descending from the gods.
Câu trả lời của ni sư sao không thông dịch viên không dịch gì hết vậy?
Venerable Tenzin, I wonder if you are preparing Dharma heirs to take over when you leave this world.
We need a translator. Yes. Yes, she is. Okay, my love, so the question was, am I preparing any Dharma heirs from when I depart from this veil of tears? When I died, am I preparing any Dharma heirs? That's the question. I'm asking you to ask the question again, please. No, I haven't started asking.
Have you had because the answer I translated? The most memorable event.
Oh, but you know, one doesn't talk about that sort of thing.
You don't want to talk about that?
Sư cô nói rằng là sư cô không có muốn kể nhiều về cá nhân mình, cho nên quý vị đặt những câu hỏi nào liên quan về giáo pháp thì hay hơn.
So that's a cute way of getting at the fact that I've never had any experience. Sounds nice and mysterious. Oh, we don't talk about these things.
Bởi vì những câu chuyện mà sư cô nghĩ rằng mà nó khó quên thì nó có vẻ hơi bí ẩn, cho nên sư cô không muốn nói về những điều đó.
So did you translate the next question about the Dharma heirs? Ask it again, Sandy. Oh.
I wonder if you are preparing any Dharma heirs to take your place when you leave this veil of tears.
Yes. She's asking if I'm leaving any Dharma heirs. You know, like if you have money, you have heirs when you die. You leave your money to your son or your daughter, like that. That's an heir. So a Dharma heir means some...
I know. I know.
Okay.
Ask about your Dharma heir. What is your Dharma
She's
heir?
asking if I'm preparing any.
Câu hỏi đặt đến cho ni sư đó là khi mỗi người ra đi thì để lại một cái gia tài cho con cháu. Vậy thì ni sư đã chuẩn bị một cái gia tài gì để lại cho những hàng đệ tử mai hậu? Gia tài về giáo pháp.
Well, of course, obviously, first of all, I don't have anything to leave, so how could I have any heirs? They would be very empty-handed.
Ni sư nói rằng là ni sư khi sống cũng không có gì cả, cho nên khi ni sư ra đi cũng ra đi hãy hai bàn tay trắng, không để lại gì cả.
But what I do take seriously is trying to train the nuns, at least some of the nuns in the nunnery where I am, that when I leave, they will be able to take over and be completely in charge of everything. And that when I leave, they won't just hand it over to the monks and say, okay, you tell us what to do.
Tuy là không để lại gì, nhưng mà ni sư rất là mong mỏi rằng ni sư có thể đào tạo một thế hệ ni có đầy đủ tài đức và trí tuệ để có thể nối tiếp ni sư, giáo dục cho những đoàn hậu lai và có thể nối nghiệp để mà hoàng dương Phật pháp.
I was wondering if there is not a Lama in the area where you reside, what's the thought about receiving teachings via the internet or do you believe that it's better to actually leave where you live and reside for, a period of months where that Lama is?
No. Can you say that again? Sorry, we didn't quite get
Can
that.
you come up here a little because
Probably
most of us
not.
cannot hear you clearly.
If there are no lamas where one lives,
Yeah, if there are lamas or if there are
there
no
are
lamas.
none,
Okay,
nil.
okay.
What's the feeling of receiving teachings through the internet?
Okay.
Or is it better to leave where you live for sabbaticals of, 3-6 months in your search for your Lama? Thank you.
Well, personally, oh yes, sorry.
Can you brief? Can you brief?
Yes, okay, she's saying, supposing in a place where you're living there's no teacher, is it all right to make kind of contact through internet with that person? Or is it essential that, say, every 6 months you drop everything and you go off to try to find a teacher?
Câu hỏi đặt ra là nếu như chúng ta ở những cái nơi mà không tìm được những vị chân sư, những vị thầy, thì chúng ta có thể liên lạc với những vị thầy đó qua điện thoại hay là qua mạng vi tính, qua internet được không? Hay là cứ mỗi 6 tháng chúng ta phải bỏ thu xếp công việc nhà để đến gặp và học hỏi từ vị thầy một cách trực tiếp?
Well, it's a bit like thinking, well, in a relationship with somebody, that it's enough just to have internet connections and never meet with that person. Traditionally, a teacher knows you. They know who you are, and therefore they know what is right for you. It's a very intimate, it's the most intimate relationship between humans that it is possible to have.
Theo truyền thống á, thì một vị thầy cần phải biết học trò của mình, biết người học trò đó xuất thân như thế nào, tính tình ra sao, căn cơ trình độ như thế nào, và như vậy mới có cái cách để giúp cho người đó tìm một cái pháp môn thích hợp cho người học trò đó, và có một cái mối quan hệ gần gũi giữa thầy và trò, thì cái sự giáo dục mới có hiệu quả.
And as I say, if it's a genuine relationship, then it's not just for this lifetime, but it's for many lifetimes.
Và nếu như đó là một
until enlightenment.
Và nếu như đó là một mối nhân duyên thầy trò mà thật sự, thì cái quan hệ thầy trò này không phải chỉ là đời này, mà từ những đời trước, rất là nhiều đời trước, và cả những đời về sau nữa.
It's as if we were lost in a vast desert and we don't know which way to turn, and we're dying of thirst and we don't see any oasis. We need a guide. We need somebody who knows how to get beyond this desert. Otherwise we're going to die of thirst, wandering around.
Nếu như chúng ta bị lạc ở trong một sa mạc mà chúng ta không tìm được một ốc đảo nào, khi đó chúng ta sẽ không biết mình sẽ chết lúc nào. Khi đó chúng ta thật sự cần một người đã từng biết đường đi nước bước ở trong sa mạc, đã từng vượt ra khỏi sa mạc, để người đó hướng dẫn chỉ cách cho chúng ta vượt ra khỏi sa mạc đó.
So it's something which is not casual. But nonetheless, having said that, it is also very helpful and useful in one's practice to read, to listen to CDs and DVDs, to make use of modern technology. Many lamas nowadays, or at least some of them, have got all their teachings up on the websites, and even have blogs. And in this way also one can communicate, but one shouldn't just communicate in that way.
Trong thời đại thông tin hiện đại bây giờ